I'd like to welcome you to Conway, South Carolina, a small city situated 14 miles from the Atlantic Ocean in the coastal plains of eastern South Carolina. The town, one of South Carolina's eldest, having been founded in 1732, can be found at the center of Horry. It's important that we pronounce that correctly, Horry County, and only a short drive to one of the East Coast's most popular beach destinations, Myrtle Beach and the Grand Strand. The town of 22,000 people is situated on a bluff on the western side of the Waccamaw River and weighs in at a staggering 29.5 feet above sea level. Conway is a vibrant and diverse city that was once the seat of industry and trade in this remote part of the coastal plains in the 19th century. The low and slow river, the Waccamaw, meanders from a lake bearing its name in North Carolina to the Winyah Bay, past Georgetown, and completing its 140-mile journey to the Atlantic Ocean, an elevation change of only 59 feet. In Conway's 286 years of incorporation, the city would take on a culture and heritage all its own. Characteristics that give Conway its charm and make it not just a home, but a home in every sense of the word. Conway, or the River City, is brought to life by the low and slow black water that flows through the heart of it, charms its riverwalk, and breathes life into its thriving downtown. As industry has declined in eastern Carolina, and most main streets have given way to deserted shells of what was, Conway has a wonderful blend of mainstay businesses that have stood the test of time, as well as a youthful, artful flair expressed in its live theater, restaurants, and small boutiques. There is a natural greenness that consumes the town. Hot, humid summers ensure that the greenery will take over the city each summer, while still being shaded by its gnarly and wild live oaks draped in Spanish moss. The same river that gives the city its life poses the largest natural threat to life and property. Despite being 14 miles inland, Conway is not immune from the effects of tropical and subtropical weather events that can leave residents on edge for the better part of the Atlantic hurricane season. Floods are always a reality when water flows nearby, but what makes Conway unique is its vulnerability to flooding that comes from two directions, both upriver and downriver. With only a 16-foot elevation difference from the Atlantic Ocean and the river's path through the city, storm surge from impending hurricanes can force water upstream and cause severe flooding. A Category 1 storm can send inches of storm surge upriver. A Category 5 can send as much as 9 feet of water over the banks of the Waccamaw River. Should we avoid a direct hit and the storm jogs north into North Carolina and drops its tropical rain, it will eventually come back downstream through Conway on its way back to the Atlantic Ocean, causing destructive flooding. Since the riverbanks are only 1 or 2 feet above normal flow, the Waccamaw can go from normal to spilling over its banks rather quickly. A river that averages 9.5 feet is at major flood stage at only 14 feet. The city's vulnerability was never more obvious than during the most recent major flood, our 100-year flood event, when the Waccamaw broke records when it crested at 17.87, inundating a portion of the city and putting the city's emergency responders to work securing roads and making rescues of stranded residents. What must happen, and what has happened since the last flood, is returning to as close to normal as possible. As water recedes, road and transportation arteries are reopened. Affected businesses push water out of their shops and start to get back to what makes the city tick. The city's riverwalk is opened and groomed as soon as water levels allow. Residents, the lion's share of those affected by the latest flooding, will begin the slow process of repairing and rebuilding what's been lost to rising water. Rainfall can saturate the ground and tropical winds can topple some of our magnificent trees, and those must also be cleared and groomed. It's a slow and painstaking process, but the city gets back to what makes it such a wonderful and charming place. The city, due to its geography, is limited in what it can do constructively to prevent flooding events. With an elevation of only 20 to 30 feet, levees and diking systems are both costly and destructive to the natural beauty that makes the city so attractive. That doesn't mean that nothing can be done. Preservation of natural floodplains gives flooding rivers somewhere to go, so sometimes doing nothing to a certain stretch of land is the best option. The Waccamaw River Tract, a 494-acre floodplain forest, was able to absorb over 700 million gallons of water. Some floodplains have been developed and naturally will see reoccurring flooding, but that doesn't mean that there is nothing that can be done there also. The City of Conway has applied and received over $10 million from FEMA to buy out flood-prone properties, convert them to green spaces that can be enjoyed by residents when the river is tame, and help absorb floodwater when the river acts up again. Those are all progressive steps to preventing property loss, loss of life, and ensuring that the city can recover quicker from flooding events. I hope you enjoyed this little tour of our beautiful city of Conway, and consider stopping in on your next trip to the beach, unless it's about to hurricane. Then please stay home, or bring a boat. The end.